motorcycle, 40 minutes of racing action. A 40-minute race set to have a whole lot of stuff to worry about if you are these racers. Have to worry about the pit stop. Inside your screen switched his attention to the massive pack of race cars that's going to blow his doors off and blow off the starter stand. The green flag is out, the drivers are on their way. Lot for at this race, the grass and the gravel that lines this racetrack. It's old school, so it doesn't have a whole lot of asphalt runoff area. He's a very talented racer of his own. These two fast. These drives very early on into this race. Look at Danny Wood on a big crash heading through turn number 1. That she's him at turn number 4. And here we go, side-by-side racing off into the corner. This can usually end in tears. One of these drivers is going to have to back out of it. That's going to be at Gallup. But Marty's still allowing some room coming out of the corner. The side-by-side going up the hill through turn number 6. Spade coming out of the corner. Walker the Canadian in the number 96. They are banging doors, heading into the braking time for the final time. They're linked together. That or you put a qualifying fuel load in either way. Getting a whole lot of pressure side by side with himself, and that is
now coming out of the pits. Let's see what his pit lane time is, because this is going to be very important when Yanchi wins.
I don't know what to say. There's Brett Cathcart upside down. And another driver coming in. That's Jeff Jacobson upside down. Oh, boy.
Hello and welcome back. We are here again. This is the second half of our Super Sunday Weekend Warriors. We are with the Spec Racer Fords, and we are at the Phoenix Oval road course. So another one of these little rovals that we don't get to visit very often, but should be a fun race. My name is Charles Boshell. Alongside me is Josh Wilkie. In the production booth is, of course, Guido Marzucchi. And Josh, you know, we don't use this track quite a lot, but we get it every couple of seasons, and it always kind of brings out some very interesting racing.
Yeah, I'd say, you know, pretty kind of split down the middle with this one with the community and stuff as well. Some like it, some really don't. It doesn't show up on the service very often, as you were saying. It doesn't really come around in rotation very much. I don't think a lot of machinery really drives around here super well, but the SRF seem to race pretty good around here. If I'm not mistaken, I have actually raced the SRF around here and was kind of surprised that the race went pretty well. I'm kind of, the kind of driver who sort of likes unique tracks that are kind of outside maybe the usual officials and so on. They don't really bother me. Some people really don't seem to like that stuff, little quirks and, maybe some not so great parts of a track. I just kind of try to make them better parts for myself and keep driving. But that's kind of like one of these. She's a bit flat. It's a bit kind of a strange layout. It's got the oval on the outside. Yeah, I think we should have some pretty good racing around here in the SRF though. Yeah,
I think you're absolutely right. And here we are in week 10 of our 12-week season, and let's go in and check in on our championship points. As we get those graphics pulled up on the screen, in Spec 1, we have Jason Green leading the points, got a nice 41-point cushion over Maurizio Naselli. Flavio Andalo is in 3rd, Felix Samoas in 4th, and Andrea Favini in 10th. As we roll over to Spec 2, we have Eric Luke leading, big gap, 106 points over Matt Thompson. Paul Jackson sitting there in 3rd. Andrew Love in 4th, only 12 points back, so still fairly close. And Paulo Brema is in 5th. And we go to our Masters group, and we have a tie at the top between Tom Gradwell and Jeff Fritcher. Tom Gradwell with the tiebreaker to be sitting in position 1. Kurt Nunez in third, Brad Cathcart in fourth, and Jim Brewster rounds out your top 5. And as we continue on, let's take a check real quick with our current qualifying times. We get that graphic pulled back up. We have Maurizio Naselli sitting up there in P1, about 0.2 of a second over Alice Pleva. Jason Green in third, Joaquin Osbach in fourth, and Simon Nadvernick in P5. And we're going to work on his pronunciation as we go. So a newcomer, I think, to our SRF crew here. We see Adam Bradshaw leading currently in the Masters class. Nadvernick is in the lead for Spec 2. And we've got a good group here. Nice mix of Masters Spec 2 and in Spec 1. Almost even split all the way across the board.
Yeah, it does kind of split up a little more in SRF, it seems, doesn't it? The S1, or sorry, the FFs are just packed with S1 drivers. Just the whole thing's pretty much S1 drivers. You get a bit of a bigger mix here in SRF, and that probably has to do with a bit of the draft. Not to say these things are easier to drive by any means. They have their own quirks to them, just like the FF does. But these ones draft a little bit better. You can really pull a draft with someone, so sometimes you can kind of be a little slower than the guy in front of you and still be able to make that time up in the straightaways and so on. But this place not looking too easy to drive around at the moment. If we could maybe get the best times up there and move the gap graphic so we can actually see the lap times that they're putting in here. It looks like Naselli, he's usually out there by quite a bit. I'm kind of interested to see sort of what the spread's like at the moment. This place not going to have as much draft as a lot of the tracks do, although there is a pretty wide draft spot there. Just wondering what the spread's going to be like today, Charles.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Ooh, and we just seen Naselli there coming into turn 1, and we talked about this pre-race. Is that the pit wall that kind of has got a point there, and as we're talking about it, that we might see some contact with that wall there as we're going on. So let's see if we can get an onboard lap here, and we'll kind of walk through this lap and just kind of check everybody out. We'll let Father Guido make a selection here and give us a driver. Here we go. Eric Luke coming down the front straight. This is the NASCAR straightaway. And you're going to see that dive down into turn 1. You're going to see the pit exit line. We'll talk about that in a minute as we're going through. It's a long, winding corner, 1 and 2, as we come out. And we've got to turn back into 3 and 4. And you just see the speed just ramping up as he works his way down. A little short straight there into 5 and now into 6. Very, very weird kind of a hairpin corner there, coming out of 6 into 7, and another little S's top configuration here as we come down to this last hairpin that's going to take us back onto the NASCAR straightaway. Not a lot of corners on this track. You really want to carry the momentum out of that final corner, though, because if there's anybody around you, the draft down the straightaway at least is going to be pretty massive. You're seeing as you see you come out basically in NASCAR 3 and 4. And work your way around into the tri-oval back to the start-finish line. So it's going to be a very interesting tale of two tracks, as I like to call it, where you've got some drafting on some of the longer straightaways, and then you've got a lot of really tight corners and a lot of medium speed corners on this track. So it's going to make it very interesting to kind of work your way around. And today's keys to the race, as I brought it up a little bit earlier, we talked about a few of them. Carrying your momentum is going to be huge. You need to get in and out of these corners very quickly, and you need to make sure that you don't bleed off too much speed as you're going. Otherwise, you're going to be a sitting duck. Pit exit is going to be massive. As I mentioned, that pit exit line is the inside line coming through turn 1, and you're going to have cars that are barreling off of the NASCAR straightaway into turn 1, and they're going to want to try and use that line, so anybody coming out of the pits is going to be in the way, or it's going to be very difficult to make the moves around. And then, as I said, slipstream on the NASCAR straight is going to be massive. You're going to gain a half second probably down that straightaway. It's not the biggest track. It's not like we're at Homestead where it's 2.5 miles. This is only about a one mile track. So the straightaway, not quite as long as what we would see in other places like, say, Homestead or Daytona, but still going to be significant.
Yeah, definitely. I did kind of misspeak there, but there is a pretty long spot to draft at this track, actually, along the back straight, and I haven't been here, I don't think, before. So a little bit new to me there, but yeah, that oval section is going to definitely provide a enough drag strip there to catch up to the guy in front of you and make the decision whether or not you're going to try to pinch him down into that T1 barrier there, which I believe we have a running bet here going as to if anybody's actually going to clip that barrier or not. And if they do, man, it'll be a big one. So probably not the best place to try to make a pass happen, but I guarantee you we're going to see some people going through there too wide and stuff. You know, one of the biggest things in the SRF is picking your battles and knowing when to pass, something that took me a few seasons to get. Not saying I've completely mastered that yet either, by the way. I'm sure there's some other SRF drivers out there rolling their eyes at me right now. I've made some questionable maneuvers here and there like everyone else, but you really do have to kind of pick your battles in these things. You can get a run on somebody that is faster than you, basically, and you can get in front of them and then really mess their day up, basically. So it's about kind of making good decisions out there and realizing, hey, maybe this guy's in front of me, and if I stay behind him, you know, I'm only going to make time up. Maybe I'll even learn some lines or something like that. And that's generally what I do, you know, depending on who's in front of me and so on. You make a decision, you know, I think I'm going to go for it. I'm faster or not. And every once in a while you get caught up with a driver who just does not understand that concept, and they're attacking you into every corner, and you just lose the pack. And that's the way it goes in SRF sometimes. So it's really about decision making out there for sure, especially on a track like this.
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right. As we're still looking in, we got a minute and a half left in qualifying, and still Naselli in play. But at the top, Adam Bradshaw's moving up to P3, jumped over Jeff Fisher. So you got two Masters drivers sitting up there in P3 and P4. So that might be a battle that we're going to end up watching during the course of this race. As we're on board here with Joachim Osbeck, and now over to Brad Cathcart, just kind of scrolling around, seeing who's doing what as we're winding up qualifying here. It's going to be it's one of those, and I just even noticed there's a little bit of almost like a little hill right there in the middle of the straightaway. So it's kind of interesting to see a little bit of elevation in the infield. Unlike some places like Charlotte, which I think is got quite a bit of elevation for their infield section for their roval. As we're on board here with Scott Russell working his way down into that final corner, and you can just see the angle that you're going to take. You've got to carry that momentum and just ride it all the way out to the wall and carry that speed as far as you can and try and get a good run out of that corner for that straightaway, because that's where you're going to potentially make up quite a bit of time. As we see Paul Jackson working his way through here. I think that's through coming out of 1 and 2 in through 3 and 4. And it's just, like I said, just a winding race, but there's plenty of racing room on that infield. That was one thing that I did notice, is you could go 2 or 3 wide through here. So we might have some really, really big class battles as we go, and just battles for position, because there's room to make moves. So if you get a good run, there's going to be plenty of opportunities for you to make passes.
Yeah, definitely there will be. I think we're going to see a lot of that around here, and just, whether or not you're actually going to make that pass or try to make that pass is going to kind of decide where you end up in the pack here. But yeah, just looking at some qualifying times here, Naselli still out front by quite a bit there. 2/10 is quite a bit. Adam Bradshaw, just a little bit behind that. And then we kind of start to see the standard fare after that. People are even thousandths of a second off each other and stuff into there. Yeah. So pretty big lead for Naselli out in the front. It's hard to tell, in these sessions whether or not he got a good draft, or if that's just raw pace. And usually it's going to be a good draft, Charles.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the draft is going to, especially go, like I said, down the front straight, it's going to play a big role in this race. And the 0.2 of a second behind, it's not going to be that much, to be fair, because obviously, if Pleva can just kind of hang on the Selly's hip there for the first part of the lap, when they get back around to the start finish line, it's going to get a good tow down that front straight. He's going to be able to make up some time and maybe save a little bit of fuel. As we're finishing up qualifying, we're here at overtime for qualifying, as we're on board here with Flavio Andalo, as he's working his way back into the pits. And I think that's going to be day done for him, as we have a little people who are done with qualifying and decided they want to just play around for a minute, kind of release a little frustration or a little excess energy, get settled in for this race. And I think everybody has been pulled up to the pits. And so we're going to get our starting grid up here in just a moment, as we are preparing for this race. And like I said, it's going to be one of those races. We're going to have some fun with this, and these guys always put on a good show, so I don't expect anything else as far as our racing is going to be happening here. So Josh, what are we thinking here as far as I I kind of feel like this might be a good spot because we have such a long draft for maybe an undercut strategy as we're all right. As we are getting everybody lined up. So let's go through the grid and then we'll come back and talk about it as we've got a full pace lap here. Maurizio Naselli will be starting on pole. Alice Pleva will be in second place. Adam Bradshaw, Masters P1 starts in third. Jeff Richard, Masters P2 starts in fourth. Jason Green in fifth. Joaquin Osbeck in sixth. Simon Nadvernick in seventh will be Spec 2 pole sitter. Eric Luke in Spec 2 P2, kind of an odd place for him. He's usually up near the front. Starts in eighth. Philip Berry rounds out your podium for Spec 2 starting in ninth. And Kurt Nunez rounds out your podium in Master starting in 10th.
Yeah, and then right after that, we got Scott Russell in P11, Pablo Breme in P12. In P13, we have Flavio Andolo. In P14, Tom Gradwell. P15, Brad Cathcart. In P16, we have Paul Jackson. P17, Jason Perry. Jeff Jacobson's in P18. And in P19, we have Andrea Favini.
Yep, 19-car grid for today, and a little smaller from Weekend Warrior standards. But, this is the greatest day in racing, so you kind of understand that people decide, you know what, I'm going to sit back and just watch some other people race for a while and enjoy the day, as is also Memorial Day weekend here in the United States, so that might have something to do with it as well, as people will be out celebrating. It's usually the start of summer, unofficially. So people are starting vacations or out, barbecuing, things like that. And so, a little bit lighter, but we're still going to have some good racing because we've just got some heavy hitters up here at the front as the pace car has set off, as we'll start our pace lap. And so now back to Josh. Josh, so what are we looking at here to start this race?
Yeah, I think, very similar to the keys that I had for the other race there was, you just got to really make good decisions in the first few laps here. It's very easy, like I was saying earlier, to maybe even get in front of some people that are faster than you in the first lap or two, and that can just put a ton of pressure on you from behind, and it's not really what you want. You want to try to get those positions, but it's a double-edged sword for sure, so you have to make those calls, and you got to make them right early, and make sure you kind of link up with a good pack, and then just try to calm down and stay with them is usually the key to the SRF. If you just battle, then you just lose time, and that's kind of the way it is.
There you go. And so that's what we're going to do. We'll hope everybody gets lined up and rolling safely, because that's the one thing we don't like to see is these early incidents that takes out several cars. Like I said, this is a track that's wide enough to support a little side-by-side racing at the start of the race, but you once again have to realize you've got cold tires, you've got cold brakes as you see cars weaving back and forth, trying to get a little heat into the carcass. See if they can get a little bit more tire temp so they can make that launch down into turn one as they come out of the final corner, headed down the front straight, getting ready to start this race. And we'll be looking to see the pace car coming in, and we'll hand the race start off to Maurizio Naselli to get us started here, and we will be ready to go here in just short order. Obviously, this is the longest part of the track, so love to just say, yeah, we could talk for the next 5 minutes, but I'm not Ron Mons. Ron Mons is on vacation. So,
watching the Indy right now. So it's actually speaking
right.
to my father earlier today, and he's like, "Hey, the Indianapolis 500's on today, right?" I was telling him I was working, and he's like, "Yeah, it's gonna be hard to beat with that one, but it looks like we got to start here, Charles."
There we go. And Naselli off early. He's going to jump out to the lead. Got a good jump on the rest of the field. Pleva's going to drop into P2. Fritcher and Bradshaw looks like they're going to try side. Well, that's very close to side by side going into one. It's like everybody made it through one safely. A little lock up there from Bradshaw. I think maybe he got a little bit closer to Fritcher than he wanted there coming through turn one. But looks like everybody is clean and clear through the first couple of corners. And we'll roll through. Still a battle there between Fritcher and I believe that is Jason Green, or Adam Bradshaw and Jason Green, pardon me. As Jason Green trying to work his way up, try and get up to the front of this field. So far, so good. It's side by side, a little Nunez action there with Scott Russell. And they've made it all the way down here into the exit of the infield. We're going to get back out on the oval, and we'll let the draft fest begin. Oh, a little touch there between, I think that's Favini and Russell. I think Russell kind of just half spin, caught it back up. Everybody's still rolling.
Yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of contact there. First lap pretty clean so far, though. We don't have anybody spun, nobody pointed backwards yet. Doesn't look like anybody's got any damage, and this is where it starts to kind of come into play here. First couple laps, you start to figure out, okay, am I going to go for the pass? What pack do I want to be part of? That draft starts to come into play. As you can see, we almost had our first inside barrier taker there. I believe that was Russell. Yeah, he didn't hit it. Not even close to hitting it, actually, but he's somebody's going to smack that thing, I think. Hopefully not, but as I was saying earlier, I don't think it's probably the best place to try to go up the inside of somebody. It's only going to be slow to try to do that.
No, and I think these and a lot of these drivers are aggressive enough that if you try to think that you're going to sneak down there, they're going to force the issue quite a little bit and make you rethink that decision as you work your way toward the inside there. As we get all the rest of the group coming out of the infield for the second time around, and pretty standard fare so far. Naselli up in the lead. He's already set himself off quite a good gap, 1.2 seconds over Pleva. Jeff Fritcher behind about a second. He looks like he's in the draft. He's going to be starting to make up a little bit of time on Pleva. But single file all the way down through the field, still pretty close in the back. But Naselli has basically checked out. Fastest lap in the race, 105.7, 4/10 over Pleva already. And he's just, it seems like he's extending that gap. I think he knows that he needs to get out front quickly. Otherwise, if the draft starts playing in, it's going to make things a lot more difficult up front for him. So he's trying to get out there and get his sight set forward and not have to worry about what's behind him.
Yeah, absolutely. That's exactly what you want to do for sure. Once you break about the 1 second barrier there, the draft pretty much breaks there. Unless you have a multiple set of cars in front of you, I swear when there's 3 or 4 cars in front of you, you can kind of pull a draft from a little farther from a second behind. But it looks like he's pulling away, and that's exactly what you want to do right now is try to get that gap over a second, and then you're not going to get hounded every single lap going into T1 basically by everybody behind you. So looks like that's what he's done here, and it looks like even behind him too, Pleva has almost broken the gap between him and Fritcher as well. So it's going to be kind of all to play for behind them, but it looks like without some sort of a mistake or maybe a bad pit stop call or something like that, Naselli's kind of got this track's number today.
Yeah, absolutely. And Naselli still up front with another fast lap of the race. Get that 1.5 second gap over Pleva, 1.2 back to Fritcher, another 1.3 back to Bradshaw, and that's the top 4. They've pretty much set themselves out, and it's basically a 14-car train behind Jason Green. You can sell the intervals there where everybody was either in yellow or orange, meaning they were within a second or a half second. And so they're still pretty tight back in the back of this group as we're looking on board here with Fritcher. The gap 2.8 up to Naselli and another 1.5 back to Bradshaw. So he's kind of in his own little sphere of influence here. Nobody really putting any pressure. We do have a car off the track behind. Looks like it's rejoined. Scott Russell. We're going to get on board with him and catch this replay.
Oh, a little bit of spatial awareness issues there, potentially. He's kind of up the inside in a bit of a awkward position, but Gradwell just kind of fading down onto him there. Not sure if he saw him or not. Almost caused both of them to spin, though.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you're right, and I think that's exactly what happened as we're back on board. And the Pleva now with the fastest lap of the race was a tenth faster than Naselli that lap. Looks like he's maybe starting to close the gap down a little bit now that the tires have got some heat in them. Looks like he may be starting to close that gap up to Naselli, or Naselli's maybe backed off a little bit, maybe trying to save a little bit of fuel to shorten his pit stop, because obviously out front you're going to be doing most of the work as far as braking the air, and so you're going to be on it. So if he can just kind of lift a little bit, save a little fuel here and there, and not compromise his gap to the car behind, I think that may be what he's starting to try to work on now, as you see the gap kind of stabilize at 1.4. As they're still pulling away, though, from Fritcher, who is now 1.9 behind Pleva. Bradshaw 1.7 back. And then once again, we're starting to see a few more cracks in that group as we're starting to see cars. I think the Russell incident and with Gradwell maybe has kind of set up a gap as well. You see the gap between Brema and Gradwell, 2.1 seconds, and I think that's from the contact earlier. As Naselli now with the fastest lap of the race again, and it's just going to be back and forth, I think. As we see a little
Bradshaw
spin there. That's Bradshaw around. Manages to catch it. Good catch by Bradshaw. Nobody making contact. He's able to save that car and get it pointed the right direction again. drops a couple positions. He's down now to P6 as Green and Osbeck get around. As we're now on board with Eric Luke, who's in the top 10. He's going to be looking as Philip Berry has made the pass around Dvornik for the overall Spec 2 lead in P7. So Ned Vornik losing that position to Philip Berry. And Eric Luke seemingly trying to close that gap. He's behind 1.3 behind Nunez in P9, who is a final podium sitter in Masters. And it's just going to be one of those. It's going to be one of those races, Josh, that we got nothing to talk about except gaps between cars until pit stop happens. Yeah. And then we'll see if there's any fireworks until we get to the last lap of the race. But so far, so good. Everybody's still running. That's the most important thing. Is everybody still out on track? We haven't had any falling anvils, as Ron would like to say. So so far, pretty standard fare for a Roval race.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's going to be a little bit. This is kind of that point in the race when you kind of just do want to settle in as well. You don't want to get too spicy out there quite yet. I see a replay of Jeff Jacobson here, perhaps taking a bit of an off track, is able to get control of it again and not spin the car, but overspeeded a little bit into that one. We saw earlier there as well. Bradshaw doing the standard panic braking maneuver in the SRF not to spin, so that's a tip that I haven't quite, my lizard brain hasn't quite picked up yet. When I try to spin, I just automatically try to correct the thing and do this big snap and tank slap into the wall usually, but just as a tip, if anybody's out there listening, if you're going to spin in one of these things, all you have to do is smack the brakes and lock, and just whoop, you just won't spin. It just kind of goes straight, and you lose a bit of time, but you won't be facing the other way. But my reflexes just haven't quite caught on to that one quite yet. But we saw Adam Bradshaw doing a perfect example of that there and not spinning the car just after actually Jason Green got by him.
Yeah, absolutely, and obviously, we see Nunez around. More contact.
That's Eric Luke getting into him there, unfortunately. Wasn't quite able to get out of the way of that one. So, again, we saw what I was saying there, the stomp on the brakes so you don't spin, but it kind of left him middling in the track there. Unfortunately, nothing Eric Luke could do about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's one of those that, we're going to get a replay here, and that's just side by side through that corner, and it's just really because of the way that corner is configured, and you see little iRacing really magnet action there as Luke gets through, makes contact, but then the cars kind of seemingly get locked together and brings Nunez around. These cars obviously no analog brakes at all, so if you add enough pressure to that brake pedal, you will lock all the tires up, and you'll just basically head in a straight line whichever way you're pointed at that point in time. As we're on here with Osbeck, working his way, still behind Jason Green. He's having himself a good run, not really doing anything dramatic, and it's just kind of biding his time as we're at just a little over 9 minutes started in the race here. And Jason Green up to P4, Osbeck in P5. They're up one position each. Not really putting any pressure on Jeff Fritcher right now. Fritcher's got a nice 1.5 second gap out in front of Green. So not quite into slipstream yet, but let's see if Osbeck's able to get up to behind Green, maybe do a little bump drafting down this oval section. Might help their times out a little bit.
Yeah, for sure. That's another thing that you want to deploy in SRF every once in a while is you definitely can push the guy in front of you. Get a good draft behind him here. He's not quite close enough here to do it safely, I don't think, quite yet. No, looking up the inside a little bit there, just let him know he's there. I race Osbeck almost every week, and he's a fast driver. He's always very clean, too, and he thinks in the car. We were talking earlier as we see, I believe this is Brad Cathcart coming in for a bit of an early stop, but he should get away with this, be able to make it to the end of the race. But back to the point there, I race with him, pretty much every week, and he really thinks in the car and stuff. Bringing back to the point earlier there where you're not going to see somebody like Osbeck, try to hack you into corner after corner after corner. He wants to get forward. He doesn't necessarily just want to get in front of you. And I would imagine him and Jason Green, if there's going to be two guys that are going to work together and go forward out there, might be them.
Yep, there you go. So, I've seen Osbeck this season and has done a really good job in his races. Haven't really seen him make any really strange maneuvers that I would kind of call into question. And Green obviously is, I think one of the admins of the league and does a lot of work with Ray Esports, and that was pretty close there. So there might be a little bit of a bump drafted. We got Adam Bradshaw here and Phil Berry, and Bradshaw's going to take that to the inside.
Ooh, up
Berry
the
gives him plenty
inside.
of room. All right, that's Berry to the inside over Bradshaw. Gave him plenty of room, so nice pass on the inside there. Didn't really push the issue, and Philip Berry able to make that pass, and now he's moved up into P6 and still holding that Spec 2 lead. So we're back on board here now with Fritcher and Green and Osbeck, and that gap is starting to close down to 1.1. So they're starting to get into that draft mode, and once they get into that inside of that 1 second, they'll see that time collapse significantly.
Mm-hmm.
So we're here with Paolo Brema and Tom Gradwell, P11 and P12. A little bit of battling here going on as we see Brema in the front, coming out of the final corner down the front straight, and we'll see if Gradwell is going to be able to hang on here and get that draft as we see Green coming into the pits early. It's a very early stop. Jason's usually one of those last of the pitters, but he's going to come in and try the undercut today.
Yeah, I find that a little bit interesting. I'm not exactly sure why he would have done that. Did we just miss Osbeck? Was that him coming out of the pit, or was he just... No, that wasn't coming out of the pit. He's just crossing the line. So I'm wondering there, it would have been a good idea, I would have thought, for him to stay with Osbeck, but perhaps he's just trying to break the draft here now. He doesn't want him behind him anymore. He wasn't going to be pushing him on the straightaway, or perhaps wasn't quite able to get there. So now Jason's just going to want to try to break that draft and kind of leave Osbeck out there to dangle by himself. And if he's lucky, Jason will come out with somebody in front of him, be able to pull a little bit of a draft and pull a bit of a gap.
Yep, absolutely. I think you're right there.
Gradwell losing it.
Gradwell losing the rear there. Just too much throttle. And I think he managed to catch it. He did indeed. Did manage to catch that car. So great catch. You could just see him just losing the rear on throttle, just asking a little too much of the rear tires with the throttle application, and loses that position back down. So he's going to fall back down to P12 behind Favini. As we see the battle here between Bradshaw and Phil Berry going on. Bradshaw is going to take that spot over, and they're just playing the iRacing game of leapfrog down this front straight, just drafting off each other and getting that pass done, and not really fighting each other. So they're trying the old two-car tandem that you would see in the old days of NASCAR, where they would try and basically just race with each other and just leapfrog back and forth to see if that draft will help pull both forward. And we'll see how that strategy pays off. They actually can gain up a little time on the lead group. 4.5 second gap between Berry and Ospec. And we're here with Nedvornik and Luke and Andalo. This is a battle for P2 in Spec 2 between Nedvornik and Luke, who has managed to get that gap down to a half second, and we'll see what this gap looks like. Let's leave that battle box up there. I want to see what the time difference is when they get to the end of the straightaway, and see how much time Luke actually gains there. It doesn't look like quite a bit.
It's quite a bit. You can pull, you'd think it would be a little more, but I guess it's a little difficult to get a fully optimized draft in that area. I think is kind of the issue there. And to go back on the point, we saw them kind of drafting each other there with Philip Berry, I believe, and it was Adam Bradshaw. And although they are drafting each other down the straightaway, they're passing each other at exactly the wrong point every single lap and losing time. You can't go through the kink side by side fast. So you need to get that pass done before you get there and then get through that kink. It looked like almost they kind of optimized it last time, but not quite, and that's just not going to make it fast. I think probably what's happened here is we're on board with Kurt Nunes here. A quick replay, and then we'll get back to that thought. But it looks like maybe he's just going to call it. Yeah, it looks like he just called it for the day here, so exactly sure. Oh, maybe he's just having some kind of a mechanical. He fixed it. He dropped something on the floor. He picked it up, and now he's back racing again.
Dropped his drink.
Yep, exactly. I've been there before for sure. You got to pull your glove off for a minute or something because you can't hit a button or whatever it is. But it looks like he's sorted it out now there, Charles.
There you go. So yeah, it looks like it's just a little wide coming out of the final corner, and I think but I may have some damage already from the previous incident. Although he did come in, or is he now? I see. I'm showing that he's no longer on the track, so that might be race done for Kurt today. Shame, he had a pretty good run going there, and before the incident that he had. And we're back on board here with P7, P8, P9. Simon, Eric, and Flavio still running their race here, and the gap still stable, 0.6 of a second as they leave the infield, head back onto the NASCAR oval. And yep, you're starting to see that gap, and he was at 0.6, and it just doesn't look like he's managing to make up any time down the straight, at least at the start. I don't know if it comes in. It starts to come in a little bit once they get back to the start-finish line. He's able to pick up a 10th, but I think Dvornik may have just the pace advantage on the infield, and that may be why Luke has not able to make that move yet. And Andalo's just closing the gap, and he's going to start putting pressure on Eric very quickly and see if he can work his way through. Obviously, he's kind of they're running the same race, but a different race because obviously Andalo being a Spec 1 driver, still the points obviously is a running for all groups down the list. So, a Spec 1 driver running in P9 is not as many points as a Spec 1 driver running in P7, even if it's two Spec 2 drivers in front of you. So you want to get up as far as you can every time. As we see, Ozbek has now closed that gap up to Fritcher, now 0.4 of a second. Fritcher's lost some time to Pleva. Looks like the interval is now 6 seconds between him, I believe, and Naselli in P1. As Bradshaw now comes in, Barry coming into the pits. The Cookie Monster car coming into the pit stop. 17 and almost 18 minutes into the race, so they're a little bit earlier than halfway. And that was very close by Dvornik there on that entry wall, or the turn 1 entry wall. Where people are going to just flirt with that the entire day till somebody hits it.
Yep.
So,
hopefully nobody will hit it. But
yeah,
looking at back with Eric Luke here as well, I think maybe he took one in the right hand side door there earlier, and he's got a bit of a wrinkle in it, and I'm wondering if maybe that's why he's lacking a little bit of pace out there. It doesn't look like much, but it does slow the car down a little bit. There's not much aero to speak on of these cars, but every little knock like that, if you see a bend in the panel or something, it's going to affect the car a little bit. And you're not going to get that so much in the draft, but on the infield, it's probably going to hurt you a little. And I would imagine that's probably why we're seeing him kind of just remain where he is at the moment.
Yeah, there's no dent you can put in this car that will make it go faster. So everything all the damage you do to it will make it go slower. So obviously that damage, he's going to carry that until his pit stop. All the drivers do have a fast repair to use during the course of the race, so he can pop that on, make the car nice and shiny and brand new when he gets in there, and get his fuel tank filled. And that made my heart jump. That was
a little bit of everything. Everything car there.
Yeah, he did not leave any room for error there as he came down that corner. Jeez. So we're on board here with Naselli. Naselli coming up on some lap traffic now. I believe that is that Brad Cathcart that he's coming off the back of? So coming up to lap Brad, who's already kind of been in the wars a little bit. So he came in on lap 9, so he's already got his pit stop done. So even if Naselli laps him here, when Naselli comes in for his pit stop, he'll get back on the lead lap and should be okay. As we see Naselli look into the inside wall, taking a really, really narrow line through there on entry, and did not manage to make it pay off. So he's going to wait. My guess is Naselli will get him on the either on the straightaway coming into the last corner or back on the NASCAR oval section. As we see, looks like Cathcart is just trying to give him a line. Kind of what it looks, because he took a very narrow line into that corner. It's like, yeah, just go on, Mauricio. I don't need you behind me. Just go ahead and go, and we'll see each other again later.
Yeah, it's definitely how you want to do it in those cases. Just let the guy by us. And in Cathcart's position right now, I don't think he is directly racing anybody at the moment. So honestly, it's best just to let the guy by as quickly as you can, bleed as little time as you possibly can, not trying to defend, and then attach to the back of them and see if you can grab some time from it. And that's really the best thing you can do to optimize any sort of fiddling around through corners and not letting people by. It's just slow for everybody, and it's not worth it at all. So we saw him there. He kind of went a bit wide, lets him through, attaches to the back of him, and now hopefully he can draft and get a little bit of pace off him too.
Yeah, absolutely. As we on board here with Fritcher and Osbeck, still running in 3 and 4, and Fritcher and Osbeck has now just got that closed up completely. We're back on here board with Brema and Favini. Favini looking to the inside is going to make that run down into turn 1, and they're going to make that cleanly. He's going to get that pass done and move up to P9 around Brema, who now drops to P10. Brema still running 3rd in the Spec 2 class, so still having himself quite a good day. Still running in the top 10 overall. And just checking down the list here, Jason Green is the highest ranking driver of the cars who have already pitted. He's running P16th. He is about 45 seconds off the lead, but he's running leader's pace, so he's got a chance to make up a little bit of time on some of the guys that may be a little bit further down in the top 5, top 10. And so we may see him leapfrog back up toward the front before this race is over as you get the run down the draft, down the straightaway here. Osbeck not pushing it. I think he's just doing some fuel saving here. He's not really pushing it, trying to make a pass. He's just content to ride behind Fritcher for the time being and get to the point where they're going to come into pit as we're at just over the 22-minute mark. So we've got about another 10 minutes or so before all the cars have to come in and pit, take their stop, and then we'll be race done and dusted for today. But still a little bit of racing left to go as these guys are still kind of battling. And back on board here now, we're going back to Adam Bradshaw, who is kind of fallen into this group with Nedvornik, Luke, and Andalo. The gap between Bradshaw and Osbeck is about 9 seconds. So this group is on their own racing, and the 3 cars behind have done a good job of catching up to Bradshaw. And so now they're going to be battling for that top 5 position before the pit stops are done.
Wondering if maybe you can get actually we're about to get it right now here. So I think Jason Green has really missed out here, and he's going to lose some positions. Jeff Fritcher is fast, and he is in front of Osbeck. When Jason Green went in, he was in front of Osbeck. When Osbeck comes out, I don't think he's going to be in front of Osbeck anymore. They have been, Fritcher's a fast driver in the SRF, and he's been in front of Osbeck this whole time, and they've been drafting together as a pack, and they've been doing it quite efficiently. Whereas Jason Green's just been kind of hung out to dry by himself out there. He's just over a second behind Jeff Jacobson, so no draft for him, and you're only going to lose time doing that. So not exactly sure why he decided to pit when he did, but I don't think it's going to work out for him. I could be wrong here, but I think when we see these pits finally shake out, that I believe Jason Green is not going to be in front of Osbeck anymore.
Yeah, he definitely needs to get to the back of Jacobson and start using the draft of those cars. But they're unfortunately for that group that's in front of Green, they're just too spread out. As we see Osbeck now coming in, so we're going to find out in short order who's going to be leading that group as we see Green coming around the final corner and on to the NASCAR oval. As we see this group here still battling, and it's Nedvornik moving around and taking over P4 over Bradshaw.
I'm wondering maybe if something happened to Osbeck there. I don't think so. Maybe not. It's just that Fritcher was nowhere in that shot, almost as if something had happened to drive him into the pit. But let's see where he comes out here. We got Jason Green coming by, and Osbeck is still in the pit. So that really didn't work out for him at all. That's kind of strange to me. I'm wondering if something happened to Osbeck on the way in, or if I'm just way off on that, and somehow Jason Green was out to be able to set faster pace than 2 cars drafting.
Well, I'll give you a little bit of here's one little reason that could be Green's pit lane time 40.5 seconds, Osbeck's pit lane time 44 dead. So he lost 3.5 seconds in the pit cycle, and that is the difference between them in the. I think the gap is now 5 seconds between those 2 cars. So 3.5 of that is just from the pit lane.
Yeah, unfortunate. So yeah, he didn't have a very good pit stop. So you got a little bit less fuel to go, a little bit more fuel for Jason, a little bit less for for Osbeck, but like I said, I kind of caught my eye there that he was coming into the pit so slowly. For a moment, I thought maybe he had some damage, but it looks like he just didn't practice his pit stops as well as Jason Green, and we know Jason Green always has pretty slick pit stops.
Yeah, he does indeed, and that's part of it. That's those hidden seconds that you don't see during the course of the race, because unless you're practicing those pit entries and pit exits, that's 3 or 4 seconds that you could end up losing. And it could be just that transition off of the NASCAR oval, because it is banked, obviously. So the transitions off of the oval down onto the pit lane can sometimes be dangerous. So you have to be very careful. Maybe just kind of the car maybe got a little loose on pit entry and had to kind of catch it, and that kind of cost him on pit entry in, or it could have been didn't see any traffic on pit exit. So I'm going to have to say it was on pit entry, as we got Dvornik now coming into the pits for his stop. Was running P4 at the time. And now here we are with Adam Bradshaw, who is retaken P4 after the pit stop from Dvornik. Eric Luke still in 5th, Andalo in 6th. And Bradshaw has kind of fallen back a little bit. These guys have caught him, and but he's kind of held them up, I think. So we'll see what happens now that Dvornik's in the pits now, if he's going to be able to grab a second or two just from the clean air as he's coming back out onto the track. As we have now, the leader is into the pits. Naselli is in, relinquishing the lead to Pleva, who's continuing on. Pleva has done a good job of recent memory of being able to kind of extend his stops, and obviously is able to save his fuel. So we're going to see what Naselli comes in and sets as far as his pit stop time as Eric Luke now comes in. I think most of the drivers behind Bradshaw are saying, I think I need to get out from behind him. The fuel savings is great, but I think I'm losing time. So now we're seeing Luke come in. We'll see if Andalo comes in short order as well. As Pleva takes the lead, Fritcher in 2nd, Bradshaw in 3rd.
Yeah, sorry about that. I had my mic muted there by accident. Talking into a muted mic. Pretty good, good first-time calm stuff there. But yeah, it looks like we're finally getting all the pit stops done here. People who didn't get them done. We're at about that mark now where you're going to have to pit, or you're just going to run out of fuel.
Yep.
Yeah, and again, as you were mentioning earlier there, pit stops are very, very important. I mess them up pretty much every week. You take, an extra gallon or two, and it costs you a position or 3 sometimes in SRF.
Yeah, exactly right. As we're back on board, Naselli comes out in P8. His stop in comparison to Green was about 1.3 slower. 2 seconds overall on the pit lane time from cone to cone. But a good safe stop. He had a pretty nice lead to a little bit of cushion, so didn't have to press it too hard. As we see Bradshaw and Andalo coming around again. Paulo Brema is in the pits now, as well as Tom Gradwell. They're making their stop, and I think we're going to be the last, this might be the last lap or 2 before the rest of the field comes in, and we still have the top 5 drivers that have not pitted, along with Scott Russell and Jason Perry running in 7th and 8th. Naselli obviously in 8th, Naselli now in 6th after the pit stops has already pitted. So we've got a nice little battle brewing here again with Eric Luke and Phil Berry. This is for the lead in Spec 2. So we've got the lead battle here for Spec 2 after they've made their way through. And Dvornik with a little bit slower stop than the rest of the group, and that may just be due to, once again, we talk about this, the official races for these cars do not have pit stops. They're only 20 minutes long. So pit stops kind of a new thing for some of these drivers. So the first couple of times through, have to get used to that a little bit, and not always the most efficient of pit stops from our newcomers.
Yeah, that's a good point. Charles. I actually, when I started racing in the Weekend Warriors here, excuse me, I'd never really done the SRF too much before, but I definitely never pitted it, and having to pit with no pit limiter, and there's a few things you definitely need to get used to, and then obviously every week is a different pit entry and pit exit, and as we see, actually Jeff Fritcher here now, right behind Jason Green. I wouldn't be surprised if he's able to draft a little bit there, but pit stops definitely super important in these things and executing them correctly. It's honestly, once you've got the track down, really every week I worry more about my pit stop than kind of almost anything. I worry more about how I'm going to get that executed, or if it's going to overfill me, or the tragic a few times there, I forgot to uncheck my tires or something like that. And then you're just basically, you might as well have taken a drive-through. It's pretty terrible. You're kind of out of the race at that point. So really good point to raise there for sure, Charles. You want to make sure all of that stuff is in a row. It's, it's not just driving out there. You have to make sure that you kind of execute everything in a race. I've definitely lost more than a couple positions because of a silly little, 1 second mistake or 2 second mistake in the pit.
And we see here we have Andrea Favini in the pits for his stop. Flavio Andalo still stays out. He is the last of our drivers yet to pit. Everybody else is in. Scott Russell, Jason Perry in. Yeah, and Pleva has jumped out ahead of Naselli after their pit cycle. So great job by Alice of getting that position. And Andalo still leading. Pleva in second, Naselli in third. Jason Green up to fourth. I think he actually jumped Fischer in the pit cycle. So great job by Jason with that undercut strategy. It has paid off for him. I think he's picked up a couple of positions, so able to get up into P4. And so now we're going to have a battle ensuing here in short order between Pleva and Naselli, as I would feel like Andalo is going to come into the pits this time by. Nope, he's going to stay out one more lap. We're getting to the 32-minute mark, so he's going to have to come in pretty soon, or otherwise he's just going to pull over and park.
A lot.
Yeah, he has
a lot. He's got to come in now for sure. And it looks like Pleva. Yeah, it looks like Pleva had a very, very short pit stop here. So that was a good 3 seconds or so. Like overall pit time was faster than Naselli. So that's why you're kind of seeing him out front here. But definitely. We're talking about pit stops, and then sure enough, it rears its head here right at the front of the grid. So now we definitely have a race up front here. Also, Eric Luke and Phil Berry battling it out for the Spec 2 win back there as well. I believe Eric Luke is quite a bit ahead at the moment in the championships as well. So pretty good battles going on all around the field out there.
And as you can see, we're going to show a replay here. This is Naselli on Pleva. I think he's going to make this move and make it stick as they come down into this corner. Yeah, Pleva just a little bit deep through there, and just leaves the inside door open there, and Naselli just walks through it and takes over that position as Andalo is now in. So Pleva, obviously, we talked about it a minute ago, very short pit stop, so kind of wonder if maybe he's doing a little bit of gambling on the fuel. He definitely wants to try and get back in front, obviously, to dictate the pace of this race. That's going to help him out significantly, because if he's kind of short fueled this, he's going to want to not have to run, full out for the final 7 minutes of this race. So he needs to get back through, but it's going to be tough because Naselli obviously very, very quick, kind of just set off and had himself quite the gap at the beginning of this race. So it's going to be very, very difficult to get back by him. We're now on board here with Jason Perry and Scott Russell battling for P15. Pretty good battle going on here. These guys, even in the back, still battling hard, trying to get as many positions as they can. They want the points. As we're here now with Andalo just leading Eric Luke and Phil Berry, still battling for that top position in Spec 2. P7 overall. Gap is nothing between Luke and Berry, but about 7/10 behind Andalo.
Yeah, Andalo's not an easy guy to catch. He's got pretty wide shoulders as well. We've been around him a few times. Really good driver, super fast. Always pretty clean too, but he's got really wide shoulders. Not an easy guy to get around. It's almost better to just draft him maybe this late in the race. But of course, he's kind of getting hounded from behind here as we see Pleva and Naselli. Naselli taking a really aggressive line into T1 there. He's really asking everything of the tires there and making sure that he keeps it tight. Not going to even get the idea in Pleva's head that maybe I can squeak one up the inside there. He's going to cover that line as much as he can, as we see Philip Berry thinking about it there, maybe possibly into T1, but not quite yet.
That's a little slow from Scott Russell there, so I wonder what happened with him and Jason Perry. Maybe a little contact here as we're coming out of the turn 6 and 7 area, coming down through the little sweepers here, coming to the last corner before the oval, and Russell sends it up the inside and locks the tires up and half spins the car. Just self-induced spin there. Tried to late brake on him and just couldn't quite make it work.
Yeah,
a little bit of contact,
a chopper shot of that possibly. Maybe again get a look. It looks like maybe Perry. Thank you, Guido. It looks like possibly there. maybe Perry kind of cut down a little bit on him. It's hard to say, but it looked like almost he pulled out, let him by, and then they made contact, which is a little strange. Yeah,
Ooh,
definitely
yeah,
a
you're
knock
absolutely
there.
right.
There's no
Yep,
doubt
definitely.
about that. Yeah, a little bit of a strange one. Oh,
Yeah,
they
and
see him
then
going
there
sideways
will-
again. Got those
Yeah, I
tires
think
heated up.
maybe. Well, I wonder if it's tires or maybe just the way they hit. Maybe he's got a little suspension damage or wheel damage, and car not wanting to drive straight anymore. As we're back on board here with Eric, Luke, Philip, Barry, still battling here. P7, still trying to see who's going to end up with the Spec 2 victory. And it still continues on with about 4 minutes left in this race, and we got there Adam Bradshaw and Simon Nadvornik. Simon doing a good job for his first time out. Obviously, a little bit of an issue on the pit stop, a little bit of an error. Cost him a chance for the overall win, but still sitting on the podium for the Spec 2 class. As we're here with Paolo Brema and Tom Gradwell, Brad Cathcart, Masters battle there. And we're going to get a little replay coming through 1 and 2 and just see how the, and just Cathcart, just a little too much speed, kind of loses the rear a little bit, has to catch the car, relinquishing those 2 positions. So he's going to have a little bit of work to do to try and get that back, as we're on board now with Adam Bradshaw as we catch up on some replays here.
Yeah, it's like maybe a pass attempt here. Nope, possibly a little spin on his own. He's trying to gather it up, and we're going to get that little panic braking scenario again. So you know, it's kind of strange in these cars there, especially once you heat the tires up. We were saying earlier there, once you heat the tires up in these things, it takes, you know, a whole lap, maybe even another whole lap after that to kind of get them right back conditioned again. And it's very easy if you've tripped over yourself to trip over yourself again and then again and then again sort of thing. And it looks like we've lost Pleva here, eh? 3 seconds behind now. Wonder what happened there.
Yeah, the last lap they were identical. But the last lap they were identical lap times, but obviously something happened. I don't know if it was, there we go, 108.1. So Pleva with an issue on that lap somewhere, probably another little half spins as we're ending the race, and just you know, has
maybe he's
basically
backing off. Interesting.
or he's short fueled and it didn't pay off. Yeah, he doesn't want the Thompson Trophy today, so he's going to try and save his fuel to get back to the checkered flag. And just as Green now has an opportunity, see if he can make a run. Green was another one of those that was actually not that. So Fritcher was the other car. I kind of felt like Fritcher just kind of half spun as well.
That did feel like something happened there.
Yeah, and you just see the gap is kind of jumped a little bit. But yeah, just Green has opportunity. If it depends on how much fuel Pleva has to save. Fritcher was the other one that kind of short fueled, so I'm not sure he's going to be able to put any kind of pressure on Green from behind, because both he and Pleva were both in that 10.5 second range. And so we'll see if Green's got anything left as we see Fritcher coming in the pit lane. I think he's decided, I don't have enough fuel, so I have to come down. Is that going to be enough to let Bradshaw take the Masters class? I believe it might.
I think it's going to be.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll have to see how that shakes out here, but that's too bad for Fritcher having to jump into the pit lane there to grab some more fuel. Wondering if the same thing happening to Pleva here as well. Our producer saying that he's probably lifting because he is short on fuel, it looks like he's having to lift even more now. So yeah, it definitely wouldn't be accident after accident here. He is definitely lifting now, and Jason Green's gotten by him. I wouldn't be surprised. Yeah, he might not even. It looks like he's starting to worry he's not going to make the end of the race here. And you know, sometimes I think what happens is if you are using a fuel calculator, it will actually. Oh, well, actually, we've got that was the last lap.
Yep, that's simply taking the race win after just doesn't fuel strategy not paying off. Looks like Pleva is going to be able to hang on and finish in third behind Jason Green after saving enough fuel to get back to the start-finish line. Joaquin Osbeck is going to end up finishing in fourth, and we're going to have that last battle here at the end. It looks like it's going to be Eric Luke taking that over Philip Berry for Spec 2. Flavio Anvallo finishing seventh. And there is our newcomer, Simon Nedvornik, Adam Bradshaw finishing in 9th, Andrea Favini finishing in 10th. Adam Bradshaw taking the Masters class win over Jeff Fritcher, who had to pit on the last lap for fuel. As we're going to get the battle here between Brema and Cathcart. And that's going to be Gradwell, taking the Masters P2, and Cathcart taking Masters P3. Fritcher's going to finish 4th in the Masters class, finishing 14th overall. And we've got our Eric Luke, Philip Berry, and Simon Nedvornik is our Spec 2 podium. Maurizio Naselli, Jason Green, Alice Pleva finishing our overall podium and our Spec 1 podium. So, interesting race. A little, not as exciting as we've seen in weeks past, but obviously some fuel strategy that did not pay off, and we've had a couple little instances like that with Paul Jackson and others. And Jeff Jacobson?
Yeah, that was Jackson and Jacobson there kind of getting into it, and a little bit of a silly maneuver there on the inside, to be honest. I think he knew that... Yep. That's exactly what I was just about to say there to producer, that he actually did give the position back up at the end there. So I think he thought a little bit better of what happened there. Obviously, he kind of came up the inside as we're going to come down.
That's what a way to end a race. Just as we normally do here on the Weekend Warrior.
Tradition. Yep.
Break the cards at the end of the race. No jumps here, obviously, to speak of, because we're on a roval, and so we'll just drive it into the wall outside turn 1.
Oh, that was a big one.
And
that was a big one from Jason Green there. Holy cow!
Oh, wow! All right.
Yeah, bit of a slow one, like you were saying there, Charles. But I think with the Indy on and Monaco and stuff today, pretty good to have a 19 car field and.
Yeah, absolutely.
Put on a decent race, I think. It'd be a little bit more interesting, possibly, if there was more drivers out there. But this place actually races pretty well.
It does indeed. So I think once we get everybody across the finish line, we'll be able to get our finishing results up, and we will run down the order. Here we are. Maurizio Naselli takes the win in nice fashion over Jason Green. Alex Pleva finishing in 3rd, having to do some fuel saving from a fuel strategy. It did not pay off, but still managed to get 3rd overall. Joachim Osbeck finishing in 4th. Eric Luke in 5th, and our Spec 2 class winner. Philip Berry in 6th, our Spec 2 P2. Flavia Landalo in 7th. Simon Nedvornik, the newcomer, getting P3 in Spec 2. Adam Bradshaw taking the Masters class victory in P9 overall. Andrea Favini rounds out your top 10.
Yeah, and then P11 in S2 class, we have Paolo Brema. In 12th place, we have Tom Gradwell. Brad Cathcart able to hold on to 13th place there. Had a bit of a rough day. Right at the end, lost 2 positions too, unfortunately. Jeff Fritcher in 14th runs out of gas on the last lap there, just before the last lap there, brought her in and got some fuel, but lost a bunch of positions there. Jason Perry in 15th. In 16th, we have Scott Russell. In 17th, Paul Jackson. In 18th, Jeff Jacobson. And in 19th, rounding out the field, Kurt Nunes.
And there's our race results from today here at the Phoenix Road Course. And we do have a couple of drivers in the area, in the interview waiting area. So I'll let you go ahead there, Josh, and pick who you'd like to bring in.
Yeah, sure. Let's grab Eric Luke here and bring him in from, I believe that was the S2 win. Eric, great race out there today. Not the biggest field. Pretty interesting track. Not everybody's favorite, but it looks like you had a pretty interesting race there. You took a little bit of damage early on, but was able to kind of fight through it and still be able to grab the win at the end of the day. So how'd you like it out there?
Well, this track can die in a fire, get hit by a train, and be forced to listen to Taylor Swift nonstop for the rest of its life. And it still would not be enough punishment for this track. It's on top of the. I mean, the track temp at race start I think was like 58C or something. I don't know what that is in units. I'm not smart enough to do the calculation, but in Stalin units it was like 58C, and so on top of the ridiculous heat and the lack of grip, this track is almost virtually impossible to pass on. And to make the pass into turn one, you've got to have cojones, and I just wasn't willing to risk a single position for a few points to take it into turn one. So it just kind of turned into a follow the leader race and try to keep people behind you type of race. And not my most enjoyable experience, but we collected the win in Spec 2 and got the points needed. So I guess I really should just shut up.
Yeah, we were able to keep the shoulders nice and wide there, and that's a good point into T1. You know, we saw it happen a few times. The only way to get through there with a pass is basically if your partner kind of lets you do it when you get through there. And you both lose speed doing it, and it's like you said, you really have to commit to a pass there. Although we did see a few into it. You know, if you can get it set up and kind of force the guy wide, then you're going to make that happen, but it's just going to be slow for both of you. You get caught by everybody else, but not everybody's favorite track out there for sure. But it looks like you were able to come out victorious. Is there anybody you'd like to thank out there?
Just a big thanks to Cloud Valve, to Slow Motion Broadcasting. Appreciate what you guys do every weekend for us. And my wife Jennifer's listening. Hi, love.
Awesome. Right on, Eric. Thank you so much for all the support and everything this year and the kind words there. And we'll see you next week.
I appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
Have a good one.
And that was Eric Luke, our Spec 2 winner. And let's bring in our P2 overall, Jason Green. We'll bring him down here and have a chat. And welcome in. Congrats on the P2. Again, fuel strategy for others didn't quite pay off, and you were able to capitalize and move up a position. But you had a great strategy, I think, on your own with the undercut early. It's kind of different for you.
Yeah, I was kind of forced into it because I absolutely clobbered the outside wall trying to get past Adam Bradshaw. So yeah, that was slowing me down in a straight line a little bit. So I figured if I could get, and I saw that there was if I pitted, I'd have a big patch of clear air in between me and the back of the field. It's one advantage of having fewer people here today, I guess. But yeah, I was able to get that damage repaired and was able to push and do some better lap times than Jeff and lock him in front. So I was able to jump both of them.
Yeah, so Eric did not have very kind words for this track. So what did you think about it? Obviously, I think the track temp played a little bit of an issue in it as well. But just overall, are you a fan of the NASCAR robles in general?
Not a fan of the robles, that's for sure. But I do like this track. We always seem to race it during the summer, which is not ideal because then it turns just into SRFs on ice. But yeah, track temp could have been a little worse. I generated a couple test sessions where we had a 60-degree track temp, which would have been way more fun, I think, saying sarcastically. But yeah, it's I think it's the third best roval, with New Hampshire being first, Homestead being second, and then this one being third.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that. I do like the New Hampshire road course. It's quite fun. Obviously, and the jump at the end is always worth the price of admission. So next week, Silverstone National. We had a great race a couple of weeks ago when the Formula Ford's there. So what are you thinking about the Spec racers there?
Yeah, I'm a little disappointed we're not doing the full layout because that was a lot of fun last season. But yeah, it'll be interesting. Yeah, pretty short track. I'm not sure what kind of lap times we'll be doing there, but I think the Formula Fords are under a minute. So yeah, I don't think we've ever raced it in the SRF, so I'm not really sure how it'll race. But yeah, very few corners, very tricky technical corners as well, I think. So yeah, it could be difficult depending on the weather, but yeah, it should kind of be a wild card, I think.
All right, Jason. Well, thanks for stopping in. We'll let you give any thanks to or shout outs that you want, and let you go celebrate your P2.
Yep. Shout out to both Maurizio and Alish. They were at epic pace today. I think, I was 2 or 3 tenths of the lap slower than them. Once I was out of their draft, there was no catching them again. So great job from them.
All right, Jason, thanks. Congratulations. We'll see you next week.
Yep. See y'all.
And that was Jason Great, P2 overall, as well as in Spec 1. So Josh, we just kind of mentioned it to Jason, Silverstone National next week. Like I said, we had a really great race there. The last 10 minutes of that race was absolutely epic. Great battle with the Formula Fords. I think it's going to be another one of those that's going to be pretty much a draft fest. Obviously, there's a few corners that are fairly technical, but lots and lots of straight lines and high-speed corners. It's going to make these cars just jump off the track.
Yeah, you said it right there for sure. The high-speed corners, and that's just always a really exciting track to race around for sure. There's some of the best corners in racing, period, are at Silverstone for sure. There's those left, rights, and everything at speed. They're just so much fun. It's always a good race there, and always seem to race pretty well in the SRFs and everything around there as well. So definitely looking forward to that one.
Absolutely. We'll be looking forward to it as well. And I think Josh will be back out on the track. We'll have Ron back. But you think we're done today? We still have more racing left. We've got the Cross Series League racing tonight in the 87s at Talladega. So looking forward to that. I'll be on the track. I'll be doing my weekly race. So I'm looking forward to that as well. And then also coming up, we have SRG F4 on Tuesday. We have the ICS Series coming up on, was that Wednesday or Thursday?
Thursdays. Yep.
Yeah,
Thursday
the IndyCar
night
Series for XMS. So going to be fantastic racing during the course of the week. And of course, we'll be right back here with you next Sunday for another round of the Weekend Warriors doubleheader of Super Sunday. So enjoy the rest of your night and enjoy the rest of the racing either digitally or live on either IndyCar finish or these Coca-Cola 600. And enjoy all the racing. For Josh Wilkie, for Guido Marzucchi in the production booth, I'm Charles Boshell. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next week with another edition of the Weekend Warriors.
Tackle 40 minutes of racing action, a 40-minute race set to have a whole lot of stuff to worry about if you are these racers. Have to worry about the pit stop. Inside your screen switched his attention to the massive pack of race cars that's going to blow his doors off and blow off the